Okay, state your name and the office you're running for.
Sure. Armin Mizani, running for State Representative, HD 98.
Okay. If you'll briefly describe your qualifications for the office you're seeking.
Sure. Currently, I'm serve on the City Council in Keller. Been there for 3 years. Last year, I was appointed by Greg Abbott, Governor Abbott, to serve in a committee down in Austin. It's called the Auto Burglary Theft Prevention Authority. And so in that capacity, we work with law enforcement to combat auto theft and cargo theft in the state. Outside of City Council, outside of the appointment, I've also served as a precinct chair in Keller for the Republican Party. I served as a state delegate back in, I want to say 2014, I think. Outside of that, I've just been pretty involved. I've got a practice of my own, law practice. I've been on that for about 3 or 4 years, and married with 2 kids. So that keeps me pretty busy.
Okay. Can you please describe what your view is of the proper role of government?
I think it should be limited government. I think the proper role is basically be there to help us with the things that I think are necessary, and to me that's public infrastructure and public safety. Outside of that, I believe very much so in personal responsibility.
Okay. When and for what reason should state or local government be allowed to seize private property under eminent domain?
Only if it's for public purposes regarding infrastructure, not for a private purpose. You know, I've seen it before as a council person when people come to the city and say, hey, listen, we think it's this market would be great for the city. That to me is a private use. The only way that I can see that being appropriate is if for instance, a road or bridge or something like that in eminent domain by every sense of the word, you're gonna reimburse that individual for the right value of that property. You're not gonna undercut that. And so it's a twofold approach. It's gotta be for a public infrastructure and purpose where it benefits the community as a whole, not just for any private venture. And really, I have in mind more like roads, infrastructure, things like that. And number 2, you got to be fair about how you reimburse that person, how you pay them for that property.
Okay. Is Texas in need of civil asset forfeiture reform?
I very much, and I need to know a little bit more about the details. I know what Senator Burton has done and what she's pushed for, and generally I'm pretty supportive of that. But I think, in my opinion, yes. And if I'm a state legislator, I look a little deeper and see what exactly it is that we need to be doing.
Okay. What is your position on marriage rights?
Between same sex or?
Just your right to get married in Texas, whether it be same sex, different sex.
Yeah, no. So for me, I believe in traditional marriage. I think marriage is between a man and a woman.
Okay. What are the top 3 issues for your campaign?
Taxes, education, immigration, I think are 3 major issues. We also got to elect a speaker or appoint a speaker that's, in my opinion, conservative and someone who will be able to bring votes to committees and have folks actually decide. I think the way government should operate is have the bills be presented to committee and then ultimately pulled out of committee and up and down vote. I think what currently Joe Strauss has done, in my opinion, with appointing people that are Democrats at times to sit on chairs, they kill the bills that come out of the governor's office or the Senate. And so flat out, I think having a speaker who will be open and fair, I think is important. But when it comes to the issues, taxes, I've seen people as a city council person being priced out of their homes. And I think it has to do with our property tax. If you look at your tax bill, 60% of that is a school district, no matter where you are in the district for the majority. And so we got to reform Robin Hood. Robin Hood right now is broken, and I think we got to be less dependent on property taxes. I like to see us shift to a consumption model where everybody pays into the system, whether you own, whether you rent, whether you're visiting the state, whether you're doing business in the state. That to me, that's how you create less of a dependency on your property tax. And so I want to bring that type of idea. My opponent has been there for 6 years, going on 8. He hasn't presented these type of things. He's kicked the can down the road. His biggest solution was to pull $2 billion from the rainy day fund and move it to this fiscal budget. All that does is create a $4 billion hole for the next year's budget. And so I disagree with that type of philosophy. Immigration, I agree, we need to support our border and continue to throw money at the border, $800 million each and every year. Where I differentiate is that for the 6 years he's been there, he hasn't gotten rid of the magnets, which entices and draws illegal immigration, things like in-state tuition or free healthcare. And so if I were in the state house, those were one of the top things that I'd introduce is we got to get rid of the things that incentivize people to do it the wrong way. I'm all for legal immigration. I'm a family of immigrants. My father came from Iran, my mom from Cuba. And so I believe in a fair legal immigration system. And I think immigration is a great source of strength for our country, but illegal immigration weakens our body of law. And so those are probably big distinctions. There was one measure that my opponent voted against, the governor, which the governor wanted to cap government spending at the rate of population and inflation. And my opponent voted with every single Democrat to kill that bill in a special session against the majority of Republicans. I would have voted for that measure. And so there's several other policy differences, but I think for the most part, those are really the main ticket items.
What do you believe are the top 3 things that make you more qualified than your opponent?
I think I'm a pretty consistent individual. I've got the experience as a city council person, been there for 3 years. There's a lot of times where you may be the only yes vote or the only no vote. And so you got to be able to stand on principle. I think my opponent's got a history of when he ran, and when he knocked on my door, and said he was going to be more conservative than his predecessor. The reality is if you look at his scorecards, various scorecards, not just one, he's actually done worse than my opponent. And he's, quite honestly, he's become his predecessor. And so, for me, I think you got to have principle. You got to be able to stand on those values and not be afraid to be the only person if you have to. And he's got a record. He's gone to Austin. He said he was going to do one thing and not vote for Joe Strauss or do something about Robin Hood or whatever the case may be. And if you look at the record and not just the rhetoric, it's not there.
Would you please describe your political experience, as well as an election volunteer, staffer, candidate, office holder? Be sure to include any names of candidates or office holders whom you've worked for or volunteered for.
Yeah, so I've currently serve on the city council, been appointed by Greg Abbott, served as a precinct chair. When I was in college, I've interned for members of both parties, Republican, Democrats, and frankly, one of the things that I've come out, because listen, I'm a pretty straightforward guy. I'll tell you how it is, and I have nothing to hide. I interned for Democrats, I interned for Republicans. Up till college, after I graduated college, that's when I became a conservative Republican. I've seen through those experiences what works and what doesn't. And I'm very proud of those experiences. Through that, I've came to Texas, I've started my own practice, I've been on the city council, precinct chair, state delegate, appointee of the governor, and I have a record as a council member of passing conservative policies, even at the local level, whether it be, voting for tax rate decreases each and every year, homestead exemption. I introduced a homestead exemption in Keller for the first time in 30 years. We did that in Keller. That was something that I ran on. We did. I introduced an ethics policy, an amendment to the ethics policy. We pretty much revised the entire page. I wrote the thing, literally. Normally people would have staffers write it. I literally wrote the policy. And so if you look at the record that I've had on the city council, it's been pretty conservative, and I'm proud of it.
Okay. Do you have the names of any of you said you interned in college?
Yep.
For people, the names of the Republicans, or you said one Democrat? Or
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So I interned for one summer. I interned Ileana Ross, Republican out of Florida. One summer I interned for Dianne Feinstein, Democrat out of California. That was a 4-week program, and I knew from the first day that I wasn't a Democrat after seeing the policies that she was supporting. But that was really that was right in the summer before law school. Okay. And at the push of counselors, they said, hey, you probably should get some more experience. And so I had the opportunity, went, and I'm glad I did, because like I said, that's really made me the Republican that I am today. I also had an internship experience working for the House Committee on Foreign Affairs on the congressional side. And that was for, at the time, the minority party, which was a Republican. And so really the vast majority of my experiences have been with Republican folks, but I'm glad for the other side, because it's really given me a unique perspective. And I'm a young guy, 30 years old, but I had those experiences early on, and it's shaped me into the person that I am today.
Okay. How do you feel about what would be best for Texas as far as drug policy in the criminal court system? Because what we've had so far has not been working for years.
Yeah, so I think flat out when it comes to, listen, I don't support legalization of marijuana, but I think when it comes to, penalties, I think there's a lot of money that is being spent towards our criminal justice system, in our prisons and things of that nature that frankly are just a misuse. We're sending people to prison for months at a time because they were carrying a small ounce or whatever the case may be. I think we got to be practical and pragmatic as when it comes to those type of issues. You know, I think you do penalize people, maybe a fine, but I don't know if necessarily, and I don't know, I'm not a user, so I don't know what's big, what's not. But if you got, you know, a tiny dust and you're in the car, I think you should be penalized, but I don't think you're going to go to prison for 3 to 4 months. I think that's a waste of taxpayer dollars. I think we've got to allocate our resources appropriately, and when you're going to put people in prison, it should be for offenses that ultimately we want them to be corrected for.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to tell the voters about your campaign or what you want to accomplish? Or
No, I'm just overall I'm pretty excited about the state of our campaign. We're working hard, and I think we're going to be in a position to be able to do well. But I'm just very excited to introduce myself to folks. I think for the first time in a while they'll have a choice in the Republican primary, which is good. You know, no matter whether win or lose, or whatever the case may be, I think it's always good to give folks a choice. And frankly, in my opinion, a more conservative Republican choice. I think we've got someone right now who has a lot of rhetoric, but if you look at the record, piece by piece, it doesn't match. And so for the first time in a while, people have a choice, and I'm looking forward to be able to introduce myself to people and present them my vision and my ideas for HG98.
all right. Well, thank you for coming in today.
Yeah, thank you.